Everyone, welcome back to the fourth game of the evening. This one, of course, going to be between Inertia Gaming and Team Dreamek. Now, two teams we've yet to see enter the Rift. This is going to be their first game in the team, so nerves are probably pretty high already. Scion and Cassiopeia, the bands. My name is Daniel Sifa Dracos. I'm joined once again by Ryan Frosker and more, here to bring you the fourth game of the day. What do you think of these bands so far, and what are the strategies going to be for these two teams?
Well, so far we've got some tanky bands on the left side and Cassiopeia band on the right side. It's going to be Scion, Sejuani, and like I said, Cassiopeia. Now, again, setting myself up, trying to prepare and look into these teams. I got a chance to sit down and talk to some teams. I did get into contact with Inertia Gaming's coach and kind of the creator. And so that was fairly interesting. They're a relatively new team. They were actually an organization before they became a team, but their fundamental principle about how they go about the game is they self-describe as very Korean-esque, a very clinical, objective, rotation-focused team.
And that's a pretty powerful way to play the game. You can see how effective it's been for Korea in the past. We'll have to see how well they can execute here. The bands have finished coming out. And Inertia, a pretty interesting lineup. Lord of the Pit, one we know from the NACC pretty well. And, of course,
Masters.
Yeah, Mixed Master. Pretty exciting
also
team.
The newest addition to the Inertia lineup, so we'll see if how their roster swaps go. They recently had not the best showing in the League One Challenger tournaments, but we'll see if they're able to turn around. On the other side, though, Dreamek, Sojin is a pretty famous and popular name. Very, what's what I'm looking for? Supportive style jungler. So I think the tank meta and the 5.7 patch will really suit nicely to his natural play style.
Pizza enthusiast too, if I remember the joke correctly. Shyvana, of course, locked in on the opposite side. That's My Teleport Shyvana, something we've seen a lot in the meta. And you talked about them wanting to play a Korean style on Inertia. Well, it starts with some pretty standard meta picks, and it looks like they've got that sorted out for themselves. Havoc and Sojin, though, locking in the Lucian. Janna bot lane for Neko and Noob. And we've seen how powerful that can be. We'll have to see if we see a Graves maybe locked in on the opposite side or something completely different. Inertia has a lot of options left in front of them.
Very curious what Lord of the Pit's going to go for. Is hovering the Rex side. Traditionally, we've seen him as actually a Maokai jungle when he was on McMasters. Had it banned against him pretty consistently. See if he's going to go the other way and take a more aggressive route.
Now, Rek'Sai, still very powerful. Obviously saw a lot of nerfs on the recent patch. Nothing too big, but some AD scaling. I mean, that's pretty relevant.
Her AD scaling was hit, but in addition to that, they gave her lower cooldowns on her tunnels as she levels it up, so she's able to place a lot more tunnels, have a lot more ult opportunities, and likewise, looks like Memer there is going to be picking up the Alistar.
This is one I'm quite excited to see already. We've got functionally 2 knockups on the side and 2 displacement abilities between Shyvana ult and, of course, Headbutt. So a lot of CC already built up for this Inertia Gaming lineup. On the opposite side, we don't really have too much outside of Janna and that Monsoon or Tornado. So we'll have to see what Echo and Neko lock in here for, maybe top mid. Obviously, jungle still on the table, and they have a lot of freedom in what they're going to pick. But it's kind of hard to pick into this lineup. Nothing really revealed outside of the Shyvana.
I mean, we have the tendencies of kind of a hard engaged composition so far. So I like the fact that they do just have that safe disengage. Elise is now being hovered over, as well as Maokai.
Looks like Maokai is going to be the lock-in. Most likely for the top lane. We'll have to see, though. Elise locked in as well. And this is the first time I've seen Elise in competitive play in a long time. But obviously with the buffs to the tank jungle, she's kind of seen a resurgence. She's always had a safe clear, and we'll just have to see if the hits to her damage earlier this season, even earlier last season, have made her less than viable, or if this is something that Sojin's going to be able to execute with.
And that cocoon missile speed was also increased, kind of in the collection of Elise tweaks and changes. Something that is fairly interesting, especially in the Elise Rek'Sai matchup. Now, Rek'Sai can clear her jungle so effectively and so quickly that she maintains a lot of health. So one of the core things for Rek'Sai is she just runs into the enemy jungle and invades them, in part due to the radar on her kit, that she doesn't need wards to really figure out what you're doing to get a good flank and a good gank on top of you. That's really hard to do against Elise just because the recent changes to her keep her so healthy in her jungle.
And of course, I mean, always going to be able to use those spiders to tank. And of course, she always used to build Juggernaut back in the Season 3 jungle era. So no surprise that she'll probably build a Cinder Hulk this game, although we'll have to see exactly what Sojin's interpretation of Elise jungle is. It's the last pick coming in for Noob. Probably going to go over into that mid lane. against Zed, and this is going to be a tough matchup for Echo. Astro, obviously an incredibly comfortable Zed player, incredibly proficient on these assassins. So, you know, picking into this, he has to pick something either safe or something he can, you know, he can beat the Zed out with, and it's a pretty exciting mid lane already. And it looks like we are going to have the Ahri locked in for Echo. And you've talked in the past the true skill matchup that's present when these two go head-to-head.
I love this matchup because it is skill mechanical based. Now, the thing about Astro to take into note is that Cassiopeia ban is targeted at him. He's almost considered a Cassiopeia one-trick pony. Zed, a very different champion from that. So I'm really curious to see how he's going to fit on this, especially into a skill-based matchup like this. Will he get the death mark off before the charm, or will Echo tag him with that and just light him up?
Well, we're going to have to see. Obviously, the jungle matchup a little bit curious as well. The bot lane still poised to be incredibly aggressive, and it looks like we have some pretty early game focused junglers on both sides. Top lane matchup, as expected, going to be that tank battle. So maybe not too much going on. We'll have to see exactly how Inertia uses this jungle Shyvana, though, and how comfortable they are with this pick in general. But, you know, both these lineups looking pretty strong already.
Now, the big tools with the jungle Shyvana is they itemize into the Cinder Hulk, which is why you're taking the double smite. Now, Shyvana gets a ton of free stats off of Cinder Hulk because she scales with resistances, and Cinder Hulk is going to give her flat health that will then empower other health items that she gets. And the reason why this kind of works together is resistances are more expensive to build. So if Shyvana is getting that naturally just through leveling up and being in her dragon form, that means that she just gets to buy health, which empowers with the Cinder Hulk, and kind of be fine on the resistances. Obviously, we'll see her pick them up, but it's not necessarily the go-to for her initially to make her as tanky as this Maokai will be.
Well, we'll have to see how that affects each of the team. We have about 2 minutes and 30 seconds left on the spectator delay. As always, huge shout out to AlphaDraft for sponsoring the, of course, AlphaDraft Challenger League. Guys, this is the fourth game in day one between Inertia Gaming and Dreamek. Neither of these teams has played yet, but if you want to see exactly how they're going to stack up, you can head on over to alphadraft.com and maybe draft a lineup for yourself for tomorrow's game. Win a little bit of money for yourself as well. Only if you're 18 or older, of course, but we'll be back in 2 minutes. Welcome back to Game 4 of the AlphaDraft Challenger League between Inertia Gaming and Team Dreamek. Really interesting name. I keep wanting to call them Team DreamHack, but starting lineup for Team Inertia is going to be Shyvana in the top lane, played by Isunari. Of course, Rek'Sai jungle, played by Lord of the Pit. Zed in the mid lane, played by Astro. And then Trigger and Mimer with the quirky Alistair bot lane. Wondering if we're going to see... I'm curious to see how Mimer plays. An interesting name.
And on the red side, it's going to be Team Dreamek. In the top lane, it's going to be Havoc. In that jungle, it's going to be Exogen, Echo in the mid lane on Ahri, and then Neko and Noob are going to be taking up that bot lane with Lucian and Janna. And already out of the gate, we have a standard 5-point from both teams.
Yep, neither side looking to push in too much. Doesn't look like we're going to see a lane swap or even wards to see a lane swap, so looks like both sides are confident in their 2v2. The quirky Alistair combo, not one I'm too familiar with, but I do know the potential for power coming in for the Lucian Janna on the opposite side. So interesting to see how this develops. And of course, also Exogen on that Elise jungle. Interesting to see where exactly she's going to start. It looks like at the Krugs. Jungle path, definitely, you know, not a jungler I'm used to, so don't exactly know what to expect here.
Now, the thing to look out for that I'm curious if the bot lanes are going to act on is going to be the big level 3 and level 4 power spikes for the AD carries respectfully. Like, obviously, Corki's going to get his big power spike at level 4 because he has 2 points in his Phosphorus Bomb, whereas Neko is going to get a massive power spike at level 3 just because he's able to use his passive double tap between all 3 spell weaves.
Well, it looks like Corki and Alistair are going to be able to start with at least a single one of the Krugs. Don't know if they'll take anything else. Looks like they're just going to walk to lane. But that will give them a little bit of an experience advantage. And I don't know if you've ever seen a level 2 Alistair show up into your bot lane, but if he gets that before you, you have to be careful. Looks like they are going to split this experience between the Gromp, though, on the opposite side. So pretty even starts for both of them.
Otherwise, fairly common. Mimer is holding on to the last tick of his relic. Shield doesn't want to proc yet. Will probably use it if Trigger, otherwise known as Evan IRL, takes any sort of harassment so he can quickly heal that back up.
Looks like we will see level 2 coming shortly. But it looks like Lucian and Janna are going to get it first. They, of course, did finish a full camp as opposed to just a half a camp. And Trigger taking a lot of damage because of this. Mimer trying to get something back, but it doesn't look like they're going to get too much. That's a pretty big swing of power already in the bot lane. Neko and Noob showing how comfortable they are with that level 2 power spike.
Great job using the Gromp, making sure that they were going to get the level 2, and then immediately abusing Neko's Lucian level 2 power spike. Again, getting that double tap both times. Pretty much doubles his damage output.
Oh, yeah, that Eye of the Storm, just so much power this early in the game. And meanwhile, in the mid lane, Astro and Echo trading back and forth, neither one getting too much of an advantage, but, with neither one having burned through pots either, it just looks like a small CS advantage for Echo. Looks pretty confident in this skill-based matchup. Astro, though, maybe a little less than comfortable without that Cassiopeia at his disposal.
They're both very aggressive mid laners, so expect initial kills to go down there unless one of these two AD carries makes some crazy plays on, again, their level power spikes.
Well, level 3 is approaching swiftly for Lucian. You talked about that being a critical power spike, but Lord of the Pit on the backside. Flash to the top. They are going to go in. Echo going to take a lot of damage here, getting ignited, and it looks like he will, in fact, go down. First blood for Astro. Good on him to proc that last auto attack, that Contempt for the Weak passive, plus the Ignite giving him the kill. And first blood happening just as you predicted. Mimir, though, in the bot lane, going in as well. Neko could be in trouble. Doesn't look like they're going to get too much damage back, though. The Eye of the Storm mitigating so much damage.
Great job of Lord of the Pit to get the ball rolling for Astro there in the mid lane. Ganking Ari before the level 6 ultimate Spirit Rush, and safety is available to her, so great start, has the flash. We'll see if he continues to abuse that on Rek'Sai's mobility.
Of course, Zed now being able to go back with about 1,200 gold means he is going to get the Bilgewater Cutlass as well as a Pink Ward. And the second he hits level 6, that's a pretty substantial spike for him, so we'll have to see how well he can utilize that. The bot lane still not looking like it's going so well for Trigger and Mimir here, as the trade's just not really going in their favor. Corki getting a little bit of poke down, but taking some back in return. In the top lane, it's that tank fight. Really neither side getting anything.
That said, Corki is a big comfort pick for Trigger here. Really prioritize that champion. He does recognize that he's not the strongest in the meta, but he understands this champion in and out and is very comfortable in this lane matchup.
Well, Trigger is kind of the more cop-style focused player. First to be more passive in lane, have more of a larger impact in team fights. That's how he describes himself, and it's how he prides himself, and it looks like that's how this lane is shaping up as well. Neko continuing to bully him out, though, taking advantage of what is potentially superior mechanical skill in this bottom lane, and Echo and Astro, though, still trading even in the mid lane despite the gold in the favor of Zed.
Despite the pressure that Noob and Neko are applying on Trigger and Mimir, though, they're staying even across the board as far as CS. So there's no real discrepancy that's being created right now.
Isanari trading back in the top lane. And, this is kind of the early game we've gotten used to. The early kill, of course, giving a small advantage, but not really able to utilize it too much. Rek'Sai moving towards the top lane, kind of hovering around. Rek'Sai and Elise potentially going to run into each other. Havoc going in on Isanari, but has no mana to trade back, unfortunately. Still going to come out on top of the trade overall, but may have to back out of this lane. Rek'Sai now moving into the top side. Elise there as well. And the bot lane's continuing to kind of just farm freely. Lord of the Pit going in.
Top lane.
Going to get that knock up off of the burrow. Isanari does have Dragon Form. Going to knock Havoc into the wall. Did get the smite down from Lord of the Pit, but it's not going to be enough. Havoc going to have to back off here. Unfortunately, for the opposite side, it looks like his TP is available. Astro tanking something there. Sojin tanks a cocoon. Sojin throws out the cocoon. Lord of the Pit not going to get too much as Sojin just repels in and jumps out of that fight quite easily. So a lot of aggression in the top lane, but not a whole lot going to come from it.
Classic Sojin. Didn't complete his jungle item. Went straight into that sight stone onto the Elise. Oh, hold on, though. Astro's going to be... Oh, no, he's not.
Deathmark, he has the Cutlass. He has the damage. He's going to swap back. Unfortunately, he's going to die, but the trade back. Huge. That Bilgewater Cutlass, that Contempt for the Weak, all of the burst he needed. And a phenomenal play by him to dodge that Orb of Deception with the Deathmark. But, of course, Foxfire not going to be quite so merciful in allowing him to dodge, and it's going to be the one-for-one trade and even farm in the mid lane. 2-1 to 1-2.
I mean, that said, to trade 1-for-1 isn't awful for Echo, especially because he still has his Ignite available to him. Astros will be coming up relatively soon, however. But, Zed had the initial, the item advantage, the kill advantage, so the experience advantage, and Echo was able to make the most out of it.
We're trying to disengage at least a little bit in this bot lane. Sojin is on the way, may not have the most damage with that Sightstone build, but may not need it. The Elite base is pretty high. He's going to just back off here. He's going to throw in Toxic Bite there, but not going to follow up too much.
This just...
Gonna get anything from that one.
It fits so well with Sojin's MO as being a very supportive style jungler. taking that Sightstone first, and then look at the deep wards that he placed for Havoc. Yeah, it was a little bit too late because while he was placing the deep wards, Havoc got ganked and was forced to burn his flash and really paid for it because he also lost his teleport, so both summoners down in the exchange. But all of those wards on the top side will kind of compensate for the fact that he lost the summoners and help keep him safe. So Sojin sacrificing his own power to give it back to his team.
We'll have to see if that decision pays off for him, and it looks like Lord of the Pit is going to be able to clear out some of this vision, but just going to drop another ward almost immediately. Rek'Sai not having enough time left on that Raptor buff, that true sight to get anything else from it in the top lane. Still just kind of a farm fest back and forth, but a little bit of an advantage going over to Maokai. Does have the catalyst for that lane sustain. Of course, Siobhan on the opposite side, though, already with the Skirmisher Saber and the all-powerful challenging smite.
So the idea behind this, obviously, is the strong itemization of the Cinder Hulk and how well it works with Sejuani. I always want to say it, Shyvana. But the idea is that it's PvE. You push the wave as hard as you can, you then run into either the enemy jungle, depending on the pressure that you have, or your own jungle, you take a camp. Rinse, repeat, you get an item advantage because you get a CS and a gold advantage. The issue is that it hasn't really translated for Isunari.
Let's see if it can translate in any upcoming team fights. Dragon, of course, still an option for both teams. Zed going to dodge out that Orb of Deception there and get a little bit of damage onto Echo, but Ahri with that blue buff and, of course, that Essence Theft passive going to be able to sustain pretty easily. Also has an EXP advantage at this point in the game. Surprising given the kills, but Isunari going in. Rek'Sai going to flash over the wall, try to knock up, but it's not going to be enough as Sojin just flashes out of that one, but at least without a flash means she's a little bit less safe in the coming game.
And we were talking about the pressure of Shyvana was going to walk into her own jungle or walk into the enemy jungle. Chooses to walk into Sojin's jungle, having that double smite available with Lord of the Pit. Get the deep wards down. We'll see if they do come back later for that red buff. They do chase off Sojin, but don't take any prize off of it.
Havoc clearing out a little bit of this pink ward vision. That pink ward did give them a lot of information over the course of the game. Astro taking a lot of damage himself, does have Death Mark. Is going to have to use it shortly. No Cutlass yet, has the option to swap back. Is it going to pop away from this one? Is safe. Oh, a little bit too much confidence there. The Ignite not going to tick her down enough. Too aggressive with the flash forward, not in range for the auto attack, and as a result, going down. Echo coming out on top in that exchange.
A bit of a mechanical misstep. I believe he could have used his Death Mark a little bit earlier to block the majority of Ahri's damage. I think he just blocked one tick of the ult. So, unfortunately, isn't able to make it connect there, but great job from Echo. Again, picking up a solo kill on Astro.
Yeah, and it's tough when you're that Zed. You got to close into melee range. You got to get off that auto attack. Content for the Weak, such an important part of his damage output. And when you don't get it, the Death Mark, of course, just a lot more of a lackluster ability. Echo, though, good on him to pick that one up. Now has a lot more defensive itemization. So we'll be a lot safer in this lane. But, of course, on the opposite side, Zed in a similar boat, getting the early Hex Drinker. So an even lane overall. We'll have to see how the next toe-to-toe matchup goes down as these two appear determined to kill each other.
We talked about how Sojin kind of traded his early game power to help out his team by picking up that Sightstone, but picking up the Dragon as well, and that Sightstone helping guarantee that as he has wards all up and around that pit.
But, I mean, look at this farm difference between the two junglers. That 6% AD and AP is obviously insanely important, but Rek'Sai 42 farm to the Elise's 24. And Rek'Sai continuing to scale up pretty darn well. We'll have to see if this affects him in the next team fight, but with Dragon down and secured for free, there's not really a whole lot to fight over. Top lane so
in this bot lane, because neither of them have gone back. Both of these AD carries are sitting on massive power spikes and gold values. Obviously, Trigger there is going to be looking for his Trinity Force. I assume Lucian will be looking for the BF to rush for his eye edge. Here comes Sojin, though.
Trigger getting engaged on here. Mimer just going to try to disengage. Does use the Unbreakable Will to get out of that situation. Corki, though, has about 3k, almost a completed Trinity Force on the way for him, and Rek'Sai now moving into the top side of the map. Just going to use that ult for mobility, though, as the bottom lane has calmed down a little bit, and neither one really wants to go back. This is the longest I think we've ever seen a bot lane just go without going back for items.
Neko is committed. He's not going back until he can just straight out buy the Infinity Edge.
They both clearly want to finish those items in a single buy, and they're
He's really close to it. He's about 500 gold off.
Just keep farming. It's the mantra of both of these bot lanes. Mimer more than able to peel back, as is Janna, but neither side really wanting to engage fully. Lord of the Pit in trouble, though, taking a lot of damage. The TP coming down into mid lane. Both lanes teleporting down, actually. Havoc trying to find his way in, but Shyvana just going to cancel that one, and she continues to push in on the top side. Neither one, though, going to get anything out of this exchange, and Shyvana just going to get a little bit more turret damage. Both top laners using teleport for nothing.
Again, the smite not really connecting, although Lucian's damages. Trigger is going to walk away from that. The smite not really connecting on the Shyvana top, not transitioning into any sort of CS advantage, which would then translate into an itemization advantage. So see if maybe it pays off down the road as more Dragon and Baron control. That said, Sojin did take the first Dragon, so we'll have to wait about 5 minutes before we see if it's going to pay out.
We will indeed. Astro still had a little bit of an experience disadvantage in the mid lane, but farming up quite well. Ahri, of course, out of pots. Zed out of pots. I imagine we'll see the inevitable all-in at any moment now, although both junglers appear to be paying a little bit more attention to the mid lane. Sojin and Lord of the Pit each on the bottom side of the map, but so much more vision control coming in from Sojin, that early Sightstone buy, pretty much giving him complete vision control over the whole map, and you can see only a single ward placed in that top lane.
Gives his lanes a lot of safety. So, again, seeing that all-in the mid lane, if Rek'Sai walks on one of these wards, I assume that we'll see Ahri go hard. Things are going down. Does know that she's Rek'Sai's on top of her.
Echo, though, not looking too scared. Astro just going to back off in that exchange. And Lord of the Pit trying to clear out as much vision as possible, or at least protect as much as possible. It's the only ward he's got on the map. Give him a break, Maokai.
It's about to go by.
Lord of the Pit trying to play aggressive up on the top side. It's a curious way to allocate. It looks like Zed is headed up as well. We may see a dive, but this is a Maokai, and it's a tough target to engage on. He does have his ultimate available.
It's smart if they decide to pull the trigger on it. It's a little bit sketchy, okay, so everyone is going to back off. Okay, it is a Maokai. But they were looking at it because they saw that Ahri walked out of lane, so they knew that she was rotating over to her blue. So they knew that Sojin, Elise, and Ahri were both on the bottom side of the map. They could get a numbers advantage on the top side. So it demonstrates that there's good communication happening across the team.
But Sojin responding and taking that red buff for himself. So he will get a small advantage back, and it looks like this bottom lane is going to get collapsed on. Sojin on the way. Nope, just going to clear out this pink ward.
His ring of wards.
And now you can see Corki has finished the Trinity Force, but Lucian has yet to finish the Infinity Edge. So there is a slight power in the favor of Corki. And Sojin now spending a lot of time down there trying to make this work. Looks like Rek'Sai and Shyvana headed up to the top side. May try to get a gank off onto Maokai. Lord of the Pit is on the way in, knocking up Havoc, not doing too much damage yet. Usunari on the way. May try to ult him out of this one. Is going to follow up, has the challenging smite. Not going to take too much damage from the Maokai, but the turret is still going to hurt. And it looks like they've opted to back off of this one. Maokai forced off of his own turret. This could be the first turret kill of the game as Neko gets pretty aggressive down here in the bot lane, not having to be scared of that Rek'Sai.
But what a beautiful disengage from Havoc right there to sidestep the displacement from Shyvana's Dragon form in, and then W to her to make his great escape. Nice fancy footwork, doesn't save his tower, but Sojin entirely crushing Lord of the Pit's jungle.
And, of course, does get that traded back for a turret gold, slightly in the favor of Inertia at this point in the game, but not going to mean too much. You can see Sojin incredibly confident in this vision control, and we talked about the farm difference not being in his favor, but he's more than made up for it now that he spent so much time counter jungling, and Rek'Sai suffering a little bit, but able to get a turret for his team. Lord of the Pit performing as well as expected. We saw him play incredibly well on McMaster, and it looks like he's doing just as well on Inertia here today.
Dragon will be spawning in 34 seconds. Again, Inertia Gaming described themselves as very rotation, objective-oriented, so we'll see if they set up properly the second time around and don't give this one away for free to Dreamek.
Be careful. Zed and Ahri, just every moment, every spell cast could lead into an all-in depending on how they want to use their abilities, and such an exciting lane to watch overall. We talked about that skill matchup, and the second Ahri burns Charm, Zed always has the option of Death Mark in, but you can see just how close the mid lane matchup is. The farm nearly identical, the kills are identical, and pretty much the itemization is as well, so a very close mid lane matchup.
Still a big power spike in favor of Trigger there on that Corki, having the completed Trinity available to him, especially as we go into a possible 5v5 over this Dragon.
Sojin moving up, trying to get something on the Lord of the Pit, getting at least a little bit of poke out, but not doing a whole ton of damage. Doesn't really have any magic penetration in his build just yet. Ruby Crystal means he's probably going to go for that Cinderhulk and may yet once again try to solo out a Dragon. Does see the ward right there. Is going to try to take that one out, but Rek'Sai is going to drop one of his own over the wall. May not have had a Sightstone earlier on, but finally has one to match and is doing quite well now in the mission control game.
Meanwhile, on the top lane,
Noob caught out, does have to use the Monsoon to disengage. Not going to be anything on that one. A flash and an ult burn from that Janna, though. Going to make her a lot more vulnerable to any future follow-ups.
Both teams playing around this dragon, just looking for a possible pick. Sojin seems satisfied with his vision control. He's going to go ahead and back. I'm sure he'll probably complete that jungle item there and get a true power spike. Nope, never mind, canceled. Looking for the pick.
Ooh, Maokai going to steal that camp for himself. Of course, Astro trying to find his way in onto Echo. He's going to use the Cutlass. Does have Death Mark available. Does not want to use it, though. Echo burning through all his cooldown. It's a close mid lane matchup, you know, and it seems like one single misstep and Ahri Spirit dashing back into the turret could end Zed's life. Elise trying to get out of there. May have to flash over the wall. Sojin caught out of position. Astro trying to find a kill onto the Janna. Not going to get too much. The charm not going to land either. And they're now poised to take this dragon. Sojin still on the outside, though. Could try to go in here. Astro does still have Death Mark. Ahri without an ultimate, but the teleport from Maokai coming in as well. Trigger in trouble. Not really showing the best efficiency there. He is going to get taken down by Neko here, but Neko may have given his life for this one. Isunari trying to find a kill in the heal. Going to give him the movement speed necessary to get out, and the rest of the team is on the back side. Havoc goes in onto Isunari. Isunari now has ult. Astro finding the ult. Has to burn everything to get in there, but it looks like the Death Mark will get the kill. Not quite, actually. Ahri managing to live out of that one. Shyvana getting a kill for herself. Alistar picking on the kill on Sojin. And Echo waiting around the outside, but it does look like this is finally going to be the first dragon in the favor of Inertia Gaming.
I almost thought disaster was spelled for Inertia right there because they had started the dragon, so they were fighting the dragon alongside Dreamek as they came to challenge it. That said, the patience from Astro of not using his Death Mark when Ahri charged forward on the Spirit Fire, just that ultimate difference pretty much swing that fight back in favor for Inertia and let them walk away with that dragon.
All right, and it looks like I've been butchering Neko's name this entire time. It's not Neko, it's Nako, and I apologize to the player, of course, for that mispronunciation, but we got it right now, Nako.
He doesn't want to be a cat?
Doesn't want to be a cat, apparently. Prefers something a little bit more fearsome. So we're going with Nako this time around. But that was a pretty, that's a pretty excellent dragon fight, and you saw the patience paying off for Astro there with that Zed Death Mark, was able to zone Ahri out of the fight completely, as you mentioned, and it's just, you know, both these teams are honestly looking very evenly matched, and the gold difference almost non-existent still, and at 20 minutes into the game, that's pretty surprising.
Big thing, though, is that Nako has completed his Infinity Edge as well as the Zeal, so big power spike. Obviously wasn't fairly matched against Trigger in the initial dragon fight.
Well, that may give him some semblance of an advantage. Corki has, of course, finished the Spell Pen boots, so maybe more of a poke-focused build for him. Isunari still farming up incredibly well in the top lane. A lot of mid-game item focus with that Warden's Mail and that Spectre's Cowl. And of course, Zed and Ahri still going toe-to-toe in the mid lane, and still an incredibly even matchup, as Zed, though, has now finished the last Whisper.
We'll see how Isunari plays around the fact that he's taken that top tower, if he's going to continue to create a pressure point up into the top lane and try to draw multiple resources there for his team to do something else on the map, or if he's going to rotate down mid and try to help his team push down more towers for global gold.
Oh, Astro trying to trade back. I keep waiting. Every time we get over to that mid lane, I keep expecting someone to Death Mark someone or charm someone. Waiting for action there. Every time I see it, it's just such a hype matchup. But this bot lane looking similarly intense as Lucian just continues to push in, and both sides, you know, we're kind of just waiting for that moment. Isunari maybe starting to push in this top lane as expected, but still not able to do too much, unfortunately, to Havoc, at least at this point in the game. Just doesn't really have the damage outside of that challenging smite.
Sojin, a Lord of the Pit facing off though in the jungle.
Get knocked up. Elise does still have Repel. Of course, that camp is not up, so she has no options to jump out to. She is going to be able to walk out of this one. Echo getting locked down for at least a moment. Charm is burned. This gives Zed the opportunity to go in. It doesn't look like he's going to take it, though. Backing off. Doesn't want to burn Death Mark. Echo and Sojin low. They're going to pick up that kill on Lord of the Pit.
Good response from Echo to make sure that he got over there. Picked up the kill. We'll see if it transitions into any sort of tower, however, for Inertia, as Isunari getting fair bit of damage, taking that to half health in the top lane.
Unfortunately, the Havoc had to back out of that one. Of course, Sojin trying to defend his turret, but not in the best position to do so. Zed, though, not feeling confident enough to walk up on that kill, and Astro spamming out Zed's wonderful, wonderful laugh, but not quite entirely sure why he could be in trouble here, as Ahri now returns to the mid lane. Rek'Sai, though, going to clear out his own jungle, and once again, all appears to be pretty calm on the map.
Which is fine. Obviously, without Dragon, there's no stage or area to force these teams to 5v5 over. Both of them benefit from elongating the lane phase, just sitting and farming it out. They have great mid-game power spikes as well as, you know, some decent late-game potential. But Astro, going hard.
Deathmark coming in, predicting the Charm excellently, and that's going to give him the kill effortlessly. Charm, of course, the most important ability in that 1v1 matchup, and Astro with a flawless Deathmark to dodge that one out.
That's what we were talking about in that skill matchup. Fantastic. And that should surely be the mid-tier tower alongside of it. So not just the kill gold, but a huge swing as far as map control.
And already now Echo suddenly very behind in this matchup. Rek'Sai was, of course, there to support as well. And it's just going to be tough for Ahri to survive until she finishes that. Zhonya's Hourglasses instead, opted for the Morellonomicon. And is a pretty substantial amount of gold off of that. Will finish the needlessly large rod, but you know, before she gets 500 gold, Zed will have that opportunity to go in again. So maybe it's a little bit more cautious play coming in from Echo in the next few minutes.
Yeah, kind of curious that he decided to pick up the Morellos for the CDR. I mean, obviously it's very important on Ahri, but delaying his Zhonya's, especially with how aggressive and how forward and how powerful Astro is currently in the game, having completed his last Whisper, his Hex Drinker, as well as that Blade of the Rune King, opens up the 1-1-3 split push that Zed always brings to games when teams pick him up.
Well, and of course, a Zed paired with a Shyvana, that's a split-pushing team powerhouse. The 1-3-1 could even be an option as it's pretty hard to engage onto an Alistar. We'll have to see exactly how Inertia tries to take advantage of this, but Nako and DRM Noob, of course, in the bot lane, just kind of trying to push this one out. Not giving up their tower at any opportunity, and we'll have to see with Sojin now in the bot lane and Lord of the Pit there as well, if we're finally going to see a little bit of a fight down here. Shyvana still slowly making it back to her own lane.
Astro off to the side. He's pretty much going to insta-murder anyone that walks into him. I think Havoc might be able to survive, and maybe Sojin if he has an escape route planned. And speaking of escape route, finds Evan.
Going in. Trigger getting almost blown down immediately. Not going to get the last bit of damage. Body blocked by Mimer in that situation. Astro trying to find his way in. Finally burns the Deathmark. Going to go in. Flash auto attack swapping back. Tanking that turret shot, and it doesn't look like he's going to be able to finish that kill off. Unfortunately, no Ignite available, so not able to snag that one for himself. But this bot lane turret is getting bullied down so quickly by Neko, who looks so confident in the face of this double knockup on the opposite side.
But the confidence of Astro to see that, hey, this Ahri is alone, I see that their jungler is bottom lane, immediately dives on to Ahri to try to make a play.
Neko may get knocked back into this tower, though. The cow bringing in the damage, but no follow-up here on the TP as Shyvana's teleport is canceled out. Now they're in a little bit of a tough spot. Trigger finally going to make it back to the mid or bot lane, though. So they will be able to save the tower, but a lot of cooldowns burned in that instance, and definitely not the most comfortable engage.
That said, Dragon is currently live. Rek'Sai is back, but has the ultimate available, so big power there. We'll see if that ultimate, there he goes, is able to put Inertia in position to take a very free objective. Sojin's around, but without his team cannot approach this Dragon.
Picking this one up for himself. It is going to be the second Dragon in the game, going over to Inertia Gaming. And now it looks like they're just going to back off as Team Dreamek is going to realize as they walk in that this one's been taken away from them. Not going to be too much of an issue, though. The second Dragon, not a massive power spike, but they will have to be careful of that third.
Obviously, movement speed very core on a Zed, especially if he wants to ever go up into these side lanes. Likewise, Shyvana gets a lot of it.
Lord of the Pit going to clear out as much vision as possible. Now, of course, Corki headed back to the bot lane to do his best to defend that tower, but Alistar a little bit far behind, so Lucian may find the opportunity. Yep, going to take that turret for himself, and now evening out the gold at least a little bit. Still about 2K in the favor of Inertia at this stage of the game. We'll have to see exactly how this affects their play. Echo going to back off here, though. It looks like Yusunari going to try to find his way in, but just going to trade ultimates there. Sorry, Spirit rushes her way to safety.
Both of these teams finally starting to group up. Now, we haven't really seen a true 5v5. It's been mostly skirmishes, which obviously plays to the part that they have the assassins. We saw one initial fight over an early dragon, but very curious to kind of see where these teams are going to stack up with their power dynamics right now and who's going to come out on top.
Well, right now it looks like a little bit more of a passive game as both teams start to push in towards this mid lane. Inertia responding by getting as many of the defensive wave clear options as they have. Trigger still looking pretty strong at this point in the game. Does have the Blade of the Rune King and the Trinity Force finished. Comparable damage output to the Lucian, at least at this stage. And both sides just kind of grouping around, waiting for an option to initiate as the Ahri-Zed matchup now just continues in the bottom lane.
Pretty much everyone across the board has completed at least 2 items underneath them. We've got some core items as far as the Righteous Glory available on Havoc there to help out his hard engage potential. We have a lot of non-committal CC on the side of Dreamek there. I like the Charm Cocoon synergy. You know that I like to call it the Yahtzee. You step forward when teams are kind of facing off during their poke wars. You throw a Cocoon, you throw a Charm. If it lands on something you like, you immediately pop that Righteous Glory and try to hard engage on it. If you don't like it, just wait for the cooldowns and try again. He obviously didn't like that Charm.
Doesn't necessarily want to go in onto Astro. Saw how little damage he did to the Zed at this point. Zed, of course, with 2 MR items this early on. Isunari going to be tough to clear out this wave. Of course, his team on the back half there to back him up. And it looks like we've kind of just got the 4v4 in the top lane and the 1v1 wherever it may be on the opposite side. And neither team really been able to make an impact yet. Neither one looking for, or neither one really finding the engage that they want.
Well, the game is so close that obviously the next big 5v5, if done in a... what's the word I'm looking for? Awkward area, could actually swing the power and the dynamic of the game. So everyone being very cautious, very respectful to the enemy team, that they don't give away too big of an advantage here. And like you said, pick their engagements very carefully.
Memer jumping into the creep wave. Just blowing those cooldowns to get CS, guys. Don't worry. That wasn't really an engage attempt. We'll get there eventually. But it looks like both sides, you know, playing patient. Corki just wanting to get the most out of this poke damage. Going to get a pretty substantial chunk out of Neko there, or Nako. And Zed's still continuing to try to split push. Shyvana in the top lane doing the same. Unfortunately, up there alone, it looks like Maokai and Elise both descending on him. But Elise, of course, going to miss the cocoon, so not going to be able to get too much out of that one. Will clear the wave, but that top tower at about, you know, quarter health. And pretty much set to go down if they continue on this path. Well, looks like Zed now pushing in on the bottom side of the map as well. And the game kind of continuing to unfold as expected. Neither team really trying to find an engage opportunity quite yet. Dragon will be up in about 2 minutes, though, so we'll start to see the vision shift around that area of the map. Of course, neither side really able to do too much. And unfortunately, as a result of this, it's kind of just a stalled out game. Shyvana and Maokai continuing to battle, Ahri and Zed continuing to battle it out. And the other 3 members kind of confined to create vision and try to find an opportunity to go in wherever they can. So at this point, kind of just watching and waiting as the Dragon will spawn shortly. The next big catalyst for a fight.
I feel like Inertia is really in the driver's seat looking to fight, but unfortunately they don't have a ton of pick potential. They have great assassination potential, and it looks like Astro is actually going to act on that. Nope, does not commit with the death mark.
Doesn't want to commit onto the death mark with the Zhonya's Hourglass available, but will bully already out of lane, so as a result looks to take this turret for himself. Shyvana on the top side, meanwhile, may be able to get this one as well now that no one else is going to be there. Havoc doing his best to clear out the waves. Looks like he may do so successfully. And just that forcing back of Ahri is going to gain a lot of vision advantage on the side of Inertia. So a small advantage for sure, but one that's going to be incredibly relevant as the Dragon now spawns in 40 seconds.
And like you said, we do see that vision coming out of Inertia, preparing around that objective. See if Sojin's able to get in here in time and start clearing a lot of this out. We do have pretty much 4 sweepers across the board for Dreamek.
And of course, Noob with that upgraded sweeper going to be able to have an even larger impact. Zed now moving down. Astro does, of course, have the death mark available. Echo still has to wait a few seconds for that Spirit Rush, but we'll still have Zhonya's as well, which is pretty important to have at this point in the game. And Shyvana still endlessly going to try to split push that top lane. Has her TP available, but is going to have a hard time TPing against this Maokai.
She does have her ultimate available, so both top laners are able to disrupt the teleport.
But it looks like they're just going to calmly trade back and forth. Neither side surprisingly going for the Dragon either, as Isunari clears out yet another wave. Getting tankier and tankier in this top lane. Already has the Thornmail and the Randuin's. A little more of a team fight focus, it seems, as those resistances aren't too relevant against this Maokai.
Comes the face-off. Dreamek has to be careful, though, because they do have a... actually, nope, the wave's building against them, but here comes the teleport from behind.
About to see Maokai trying to find his way in. Shyvana is going to be able to take down that top lane turret, and the dragon will be secured in the favor of Team Dreamek. But at what cost? Is now this tier 2 tower looks like it could be vulnerable as well. Maokai finding his way in to clear the waves, but Shyvana is still splitting top as the team starts to back off and move towards her. All of Dreamek trying to move up to stop this one as well. And it looks like Shyvana not going to be able to get too much from this, but the team's poised to fight now on the top side of the map. Havoc going in. The charm does land on Lord of the Pit. There's not too much follow-up. Ari trying to dance in there with the Spirit Rush. Zed throwing as much poke as possible. Trigger on the backside. Isunari with a huge impact. Zed, of course, has not burned the death mark yet. Will use it onto Echo. The immediate Zonya's Hourglass coming out. 2 down, though, as Astro and Lord of the Pit drop, and a 2-for-0 exchange. A 3-for-0 exchange. Havoc knocking Trigger back into the team. Sojin grabbing that one for themselves. And a 4-for-0 exchange off the back of that dragon fight in the favor of Team Dreamek. And now the gold, only 3k deficit as they move to take Baron.
That was a huge misstep from Inertia there on their rotation play. Got cut out, had a fantastic play from Dreamek, and not only are they going to take all of the kills, the dragon, but now looking at the Baron, and surely Nako there burning through this.
3-0-2, now his scoreline. Similarly, Echo having a huge impact, and Astro, unfortunately, you know, with the most kills and the most gold on the team, not able to have the impact that he needed to in that previous fight. And as a result, of course, they lost out on that one. And with Baron now kind of bullying down their lanes, the question is going to be what's next for Dreamek and what are they going to do?
I mean, that said, even after it's all said and done, Dreamek are still at a gold deficit. It's very, very close. Yes, they have the Baron creeps, so they have the ability to siege here. This is their chance to really start snowballing ahead and to take the driver's seat in this game.
Well, you can see that they have now evened up the gold on the back of that 4-kill and Baron exchange, but they're still not quite on top of the towers. Still 2-4. Baron should help that as Maokai now pushes in on the top side. Shyvana maybe a little bit more hard-pressed to take care of those Baron buff minions, but the team still seems not so determined to group and push anything out. A little bit more cautious, maybe heading up to the top side of the map. Shyvana now starting to back off of this one.
Especially as the rest of Dreamek there is coming up top lane. Echo standing behind the tower. Surely this will even that up and give them the... will it give them the advantage? Nope, still short. They're forever chasing the 1k gold deficit, especially as Zed in that bot lane. Astro's surely going to get a free tower if someone doesn't respond to him.
Isunari tough, stuck under this tower. Maytank Charm here is going to. The follow-up is definitely there. They have a hard time jumping out of this one in the dragon form. Zed going to get a tower on the bottom side of the map. Isunari going to drop down. A humongous mistake coming out there, and it looks like we may see them finally break the line. Lord of the Pit gonna make it out, and it looks like Mimir gonna protect his team's backs, but still an inhibitor lost on the side of Inertia. And Shyvana just way too confident. Isunari regretting that one. He had to watch his inhibitor die because of his mistakes. Astro, though, may be able to trade something back. Sojin getting engaged on, Elise jumping to the air with that repel. Not going to dodge too much damage, though. Deathmark still available for Zed. Has not used it, but Trigger going to drop as well. Zed needs to get out of there if he wants to help his team. Echo burning through the rest of the lineup. Lord of the Pit could drop here. Doesn't look like it's going to happen. They have to be careful. Mimir not knocking anyone back into the fountain, but getting burned down himself. The true damage on Origin Deception doing so well, and it looks like it's going to be GG. As Inertia Gaming gets taken out by Dreamek, and a little bit too much confidence from Astro on that base race.
What a crazy game. So initially, like you said, it kind of came into this lull where everyone was just waiting for Dragon to create a platform for them to just smash each other into a 5v5, and then immediately Dreamek punish Inertia off of a huge flank after they tried to go for the mid-tier tower, transitions into a Baron, and then it turns into this crazy base race. The issue here is that they were theoretically going to trade inhib for an inhib, and that was going to be fantastic if Inertia was able to commit it. But the trade was Sojin for Astro Zed. And if we just look at their score lines, 3-3-2, it doesn't seem like a lot, but like you said, all of their gold and all of their power is on Astro Zed play right now, whereas Sojin, 1-1-4, this big, tanky, supportive, he's not the carry of his team. That was an entirely worthwhile trade, and Dreamek are able to just mow through Inertia's base. So Inertia a little bit fumbled on the rotations, and this is supposed to really be their strong suit, but GG, well played to Dreamek. Great showing.
Dreamek, an excellent team. Inertia, maybe a little bit of nerves in their first game of the week. We'll have to see exactly how well they perform tomorrow in their next matchup versus Misfits. But Misfits, of course, going to play their first game of the night versus Cloud9 Tempest coming up next. In the meantime, head on over to AlphaDraft. Draft your favorite fantasy teams. You can bet real money if you like, 18 or older, of course, but you can draft your lineup for tomorrow And we'll see you back here in a few minutes for our final game of the evening between Cloud9 Tempest and Misfits.
Be